Greetings everyone. Welcome to Trout Fishing in America, with apologies to Richard Brodigan and the band by the same name. This is the North Carolina edition, where we're going to look at chasing some of the elusive trout in the streams and rivers here in beautiful western North Carolina and the edge of the Smokies. So join us. So let's start out talking about the different types of gear, poles, rods, accessories, etc. it takes to make this successful. What's that? Oh, a bear. Let's take a look at some of the techniques used to catch these little tricky guys. There's two main types, using a spinning outfit or a fly rod. So I grew up on the lakes and rivers in the Ozarks, later in the ocean, so I've been using a spinning rod for many years. So I'm pretty familiar with that. My favorite lure is this little crankbait, the Rapala, made by a company in Finland who's been cranking these out for many years. They're always seem to get the fish. They're quite expensive, so when you lose them, that's about $5–10 up in the tree, down in a rock, whatever. But a lot of people don't consider them sporting, so they go for the fly rod, which is more of a kind of a elitist school of thought, and definitely a different technique you have to learn. So you've got a much longer rod, you've got a heavier fly line, you've got a fly, little tiny hook that you have to whip around, place it exactly where you want it to go, let it drift down the stream, present it exactly in front of the fish so it looks totally natural, and hope that you fool them. Usually you don't. After a while I give up, go back to the Rapala. That's just the way it goes. And interesting little side note, I've always called these guys Rapellas ever since I first started using them 30 years ago. And my son Jazz corrected me a few weeks ago. He says, I think it's Rapala. I go, how would you know? And he said, well, you just look on their website. They're the ones that created it in Finland. That's what they call it. So that's what they are. And let me tell you, they work. Like almost all other hobbies, fly fishing can get very expensive. If you listen to the experts, they tell you you need a different rod, different reel, different weight line for every different fish or stream. If you're in a close, small stream with lots of brush, you need a short rod. If you're in a big, wide river, you need a long rod where you can really lay it out there. And of course, the good ones are $300 or $400 a rod. Same for the reel. The line is expensive. You have to have a leader as well, and a thin tippet at the end so the fish can't see the line, so you really think you're fooling them. And then you have to have all the different flies. Of course, there's dry flies that float on top of the water. You try to match the hatch. If the mayflies are hatching, try to pick the color pattern. If it's some other kind of insect that's hatching, you match the hatch, supposedly. If they're not hitting on the surface, then you go to a streamer or a weighted nymph to carry it down deep under the water during the day, or if the fish are down at the bottom. That doesn't work, get out your spinning rod and get the Rapala. So when you're out there standing in the river and you're out in the middle of the stream and you actually catch a fish, and if it's a really good one, you really don't want to lose it, right? You want to get them up, keep them in the water, but take a picture because nobody's going to believe you otherwise. So now you got a rod in your hand, you got your wading stick, and you're going, now what? Well, I'll drop my wading stick, and I've got a net. It's hooked on a little magnet on the back here so I can pull it off, and now I've got my net ready. So I get the fish in here, get it in close, and voila, you got the fish. And there you have it, the rare Maltese albino brook trout. Once you've taken your photo to prove that you actually did get a fish and get it in the net, bring your net back over, try to find the magnet, you're ready to go. Now, it wouldn't be fishing if you didn't have to change your hooks or your lures or your lines all the time. So that's why they usually wear a vest with all this stuff on them. So we've got this handy dandy vest. It's got lots of pockets on it. It's got a couple little retractors here. These little things are called nippers, basically glorified nail clippers. Over here, forceps. Got a little wire cutter on the end, glorified needle nose pliers. Lots of clips on here to hold the weighting staff. Got several pockets here. This little front pocket is where I keep my plastic worms. Little pocket on this side has tiny hooks, more plastic worms and jigs. Big pocket here has flies, spare Rapalas. Can't afford too many, and with the shortage of everything due to COVID, they're hard. Those things are hard to find right now. Walmart is out, Amazon is out. I guess I'm gonna have to give up on them. Then this pocket over here, I keep important stuff like stuff I don't want to drop, like my reading glasses, because I can't really tie knots, so I've got to juggle, take my sunglasses off, try and get my reading glasses on it. Oh shit, that's the third pair I've lost. Fishing license, very important. Been checked a couple times. Car keys, because you never know when you're actually going to need it. And in case you actually fall and get swept down the river. Just like any outdoor activity, your sunglasses are very important. Especially in fishing, they got to be polarized. I've had these pair of Ocean Waves glasses probably 15 years, and I had one more pair before that for about another 15 years. I first saw the company down at the Miami Boat Show back in the 70s or 80s, and they do a wonderful job. The frames are a little bit big and goofy looking, but the glass is perfect for seeing into the water, seeing the fish, seeing the rocks when you're trying to wade around. They are indispensable. So don't skimp on the sunglasses. Most of the rivers and the streams up here in the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Smokies are running pretty swift. So if you got to get out there and wade across it, as soon as you get much over thigh deep up to your knees, you got a lot of pressure, and the rocks are slippery. There's tree branches, there's holes. If the visibility's not good, you can't see. So I always carry a wading stick. If I didn't, I would have fallen a bunch of times already. This is a pretty cheap one. It's collapsible, breaks down into different portions, has a little elastic cord in between there, and then it snaps together. I have it clipped onto the vest with a little carabiner. Now, one thing, once you get yourself out into the stream, and if it's really swift, sometimes I have to use like two hands to step across there, and it's pretty tedious and a little hair-raising experience, but I haven't fallen yet, knock on wood. So, but once you get out to a spot and start fishing, then you got to let go of it. So usually that's just dangling like that. Now I suppose some people, maybe once they get to a spot in the river, maybe they take it apart and put it away. I haven't done that yet, because that just seems like one more thing. So it's usually down there dangling and banging around my knees, and then it gets tangled up in the net, tangled up in the fish, but it's really it's a necessary tool for me, so think about it. Now, trout like really cold water. That's where they thrive. So most people that go fishing for trout have to get a set of waders to keep dry, which helps keep you warm. It might be 75 degrees out, but if the water is 40 degrees, you're going to get cold if you're wet. So a good set of waders is really necessary. This is a pretty inexpensive pair that I got because I wasn't going to be here that long. They have the boots are built into them. Got a fairly good bottom for gripping. You can also get waders that have stocking feet, and then you buy special wading shoes, which are probably $200–300 a pair just for the shoes. Adjustable straps. One other safety item that's recommended is a wader belt. This is a separate item that you get, so in case you fall, it doesn't immediately scoop up full of water. So you tighten this belt out. Supposedly keeps the water out. Now, this seems to be a little bit of a controversial subject. Some people say it's better to let them fill up with water because once the water is inside, it's not any heavier than outside. It's hard to swim with them on, just like it's hard to swim with your clothes. But other than that, no different. Other people say if you don't have this on and you're caught going downstream, that the water's pressure is going to catch on this and sweep you downstream faster. I'm not sure which, but I'm hopefully not going to fall, because falling in a swift current, especially if you get swept under a log or into a big whirlpool or something like that, it's pretty dangerous. So we'll just try to stay safe. We're in the mountains, so don't forget your raincoat. And if the sun actually does come out, don't forget your sunscreen. So I hope you enjoyed this edition of Trout Fishing in America, brought to you by ClickerTreks. All right, everybody, happy trails and see you on the water.